Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lightning Talks. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. I assume there's a lot of people here. I can't see anyone because I'm utterly blinded right now. But we're going to be doing 5-minute talks. Please give a hand to everyone that comes up. And if they go over times for 5 minutes, we'll be using the illustrious gong right here. And if it looks familiar, it is the same one from RailsConf that Jonan got, so someone managed to keep it in a box somewhere, and now I can use it too. So it's well, hopefully I don't have to use it because I feel horrible whenever if I have to do that. But yeah, so why don't we give a round of applause to Anna and have her come up.
Hello, everyone. I guess my time has started. Okay, so has anyone heard about metaprogramming in Ruby? Raise your hands. Oh, wow, cool. Oh, and the presentation isn't working. But anyway, my name is Anna. I'm from Vancouver. Here's my LinkedIn if you'd like to connect with me. What is metaprogramming? It's a technique that allows you to write code dynamically at the right time. Basically, it's the code that writes itself. Pretty cool, eh? There is one really important and great gem that uses metaprogramming a lot. And what gem it is, does anyone know? Yep. All right, I won't do this talk any justice if I don't talk about the object. Here's the screenshot for you. Long story short, in Ruby, everything is an object. Classes are actually modules, and yes, you guessed it, they are objects. So what problem am I solving? I was assigned a task to add some segment tracking to our newly built feature at work. And as every dev, I wanted to go and check how it's done before me. So here's the pattern. A controller calls the persistence service, which in turn calls the service tracking module, where the whole thing happens, and which in turn calls analytics service module, to set up the whole analytics service. So I don't know about you, but I'm lazy. And building out a service tracking module, an analytics service module, plus 2 files, multiplied by 2 different classes, that would make 8 files. And I'm not going to do that. So where's the metaprogramming part comes from, you would ask. So here we have the old service tracking module, and on the right-hand side, you can see the one that I rebuilt using metaprogramming. As you can see, it's really similar with a couple of very important differences. The first one being object name, we're grabbing it from the class and creating it, thus making this particular class not specific at all. Okay, so what's next? Oh, I'm running through my slides, but I'm skipping on a lot of information for you folks. Okay. So what's next? Having run these improvements by my colleagues, they asked me a couple of questions. For example, what if we have a specific method that only lives on a persistent service for, say, a legal fee, but we ain't gonna need it for, say, liens? These are legal terms. I have no idea what they mean also, so don't worry. Okay, I thought that's a very valid question. Another question they asked me, what if we don't want to track something? And to myself, I thought, why wouldn't you want to track something if it comes for free? But of course, I knew they were right, and I knew that I had to do something about it. Thus, and plus, I haven't used the heavy guns of metaprogramming just yet, which is define methods. Okay, here is how I decided to rebuild the class even further. So from any persistent service, I would be calling the track analytics with the methods that I want to include, with the actions that they will respond to, and with the conditions. And I would rebuild the service tracking module in a way to define these methods automatically. Hooray! And as you can see on your left-hand side, this is how the method will actually look. OK, I only have 30 seconds. So on the left, you can see how it was right now, what it is right now. Not super specific, but rather generic. Sorry, more generic than before, but not super abstract. And on the right-hand side, you'll see how it will look finally. It's not production ready yet. Anyway, here are the pros and cons of metaprogramming in Ruby. I'm hoping that you're going to give it a chance and enjoy it. Thank you.
So, hello, everyone. I'm happy and excited to be here. I want to share a story. I want to talk about how 2 days ago in Hackspace, I contributed to a gem I've always loved and used for more than 5 years. I found about Faker when I was taking the Lewagon bootcamp, a Ruby on Rails bootcamp. I remember the first time I used it and was impressed by how you can simply ask for a random name, city, country, and simply give it back to you. I vividly remember when I added it into my gem file and was playing with it for the first time. I remember it felt like magic, and it honestly kind of is. After I finished the bootcamp as a student, I've continued to use it throughout the years. It's one of those gems that I've always liked and enjoyed working with. Before getting to RubyConf, I knew that Stephanie and Thiago, core maintainers of the Faker gem, were going to have a space to contribute to the gem. When I saw that message, I immediately knew I wanted to be there and contribute. It simply felt right to give back. As a side note, I've known Stephanie and Thiago for almost a year. I took a course they were offering on their website, HexDevs, and got to know them. They've been truly kind, attentive, and welcoming. So thank you guys for that. At the end of the day, we were able to put up a PR and added benchmark to the gem. We're trying to pin down the slowest generators and understand why that's happening. Adding a benchmark also felt like the first natural thing to do. Next step is to understand why they are slow and try to fix them. That's what I'm going to be working on after the conference. I'm extremely happy to be able to put a PR into the Faker gem, and I am more than motivated to share this with my students at Lewagon. I now teach Ruby on Rails at the bootcamp, and to continue to give back to a community that has truly, truly given a lot to me. It just feels like the natural thing to do. So thank you all. And also, I want to mention that we are organizing RubyMX meetup in Mexico City, if you happen to be around in January. And thank you all.
So I'm here to talk about bridging the gap between technology and creativity and my experience with that. I'm Jade. I'm a recent addition to the Ruby community. I graduated from Turing School of Software and Design in June of this year. And thanks. So I've never really considered myself a technical human. Had you asked me about 2 years ago if I would be standing here, I would have replied with a very confident, absolutely not. On the flip side, I've always considered myself a very creative person. As you can see, some of my art is up on the screen right now. If you're into Animal Crossing, you're cool, come talk to me. So I've always delved into creating, and in short, that's really just what I like to do. So for just a little bit more context, the year is 2021. I'm working as an event manager for a venue in Denver, my home. And I'm using my MacBook for the first time. I found myself floundering. The guy in the picture actually had to teach me how to copy and paste. And if our hiring managers are in the audience, don't worry, I'm like super good at doing that now. So, So fast forward a few months, I'm struggling with my new role, not because of the computer. But I decided nervously to go to Turing, and it turns out that I can program, and I end up graduating, but something was missing. And spoiler, it was art. So, luckily, a friend invited me to collaborate on an interactive art exhibit at home. The opportunity to craft software for controlling hardware components within an art exhibit was too exciting to resist, and my response was a resounding hell yes. So now you'll often find me immersed in the world of Ruby, orchestrating the dance of various hardware components throughout the exhibit. As I navigate this creative space, I'm not only focused on the present tasks, but also daydreaming about innovative ways to elevate the exhibit and stimulate our minds by blending technology and art. It really is a thrilling journey of exploration and imagination, the missing piece of fulfillment that I was searching for. So, you might be asking, that's great, Jade, how exactly are you doing this? That's a great question. I would love to tell you. So it's kind of hard to describe. Who's here is familiar with Meow Wolf? Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So a number of people. If you're not, it is an interactive art exhibit. It's really cool if you have the opportunity to go. So my work is kind of like that, but I work for the mom and pop version of Meow Wolf. My role is the driving force behind transforming the creative dreams into real-world experiences. I collaborate close with our creative team and lead initiatives that redefine the boundaries of what's possible. We bring this vision to life in 3 ways. We integrate PLCs, programmable logic controllers. If you don't know what that is, don't worry. I didn't either when I took on the project. I had no idea. And so we integrate these programmable logic controllers and leverage the power of bright authors. Who has been to a mall and seen advertisements on the screen? Yeah, cool. Those are powered by bright authors. I also didn't know that. But so we use those for projection mapping. And finally, we create a Ruby on Rails program to catalog and monitor events within our art space. It's not just technology, it's an artful fusion that allows us to craft unparalleled experiences for our patrons. It's a journey where our engineering team doesn't just expand the limits of software. We are actively shaping it into the embodiment of our collective dreams. Cool. In short, let your freak flag fly to find your niche. I did, and it's working out really well for me. I'm also looking for a more permanent role as a developer, so if you or someone you know could benefit from a creative mind like mine, and you know you could, let's connect. I would love to talk to you. Thank you.
Hello. Let me just make this a little brighter for myself. My name is Amanda. I am new to the tech world. I just started learning Ruby about 3 months ago. I'm in Flatiron School, and so I'm super excited to be here as a scholar. It has been such an honor and delight. Previous to my engineering experience, I spent 10 years in health and wellness as a massage therapist and yoga instructor and self-care advocate, and today I want to bridge the gap between debugging your code and creating sustainable self-care practices. I love Ruby's error handling messages. Not in the beginning. In the beginning, I was like, oh, these things aren't working, and it was terrible. And I quickly learned that these are my helpers. They are my adversaries. And I leaned on them to learn more about the language and to understand what was going on and why my code was doing what it was doing. Similar to error messages and compiler warnings, your body is also giving you signals and messages. What that looks like might be when you're hungry or your back hurts or you have eye strain, whatever. Your body is constantly talking to you all the time. And similar to your compiler warnings, you can ignore your body's messages, but that doesn't mean that you should. It could have consequences later. I am so nervous, and you guys are so kind. I'm like shaking up here. Oh my gosh. guys. My body is telling me, what are you doing? But, okay. Thank you, thank you. So, let's not ignore these messages. Let's take a step, let's listen to what our body is saying. And so what does that look like? Sometimes it can be really overwhelming, but it makes sense. You sit at a desk all day, your back might hurt, your wrists, your eyes, all of these things, of course. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can be a journey. I have been sitting and standing with you all over the past 3 days, and I've seen your tenacity and your curiosity and your just zest for programming. And so what if you took a little bit of that and you applied it to your body? What if you took it to listen to what your body was telling you and you did something? You're like, Amanda, what does that look like? I don't know. When you're running your test suites, do some squats. When you're brushing your teeth, practice balancing. Everything matters, and everybody's body is different. And so your journey into what your self-care looks like is going to be different. But I want to encourage you to take these things that I know you have, like I said, your tenacity, your curiosity, and apply it to your own body. This is where you're going to live for your whole life, regardless. It's really important, needless to say. Your body is important, and so I would love for you to be curious about it and to take care of yourself. Consistency is key here. None of us learned to program overnight, so learning how to care for your body and what it means when your back hurts is going to look a little bit different. This stuff is my jam. If you want specifics of what I think might be helpful for you, I would love to talk to you, but otherwise, I trust that you all can find your own body's answers. I want you to feel awesome, and I think that is totally possible. So thanks for letting me up here and encouraging me. I appreciate you.
So today I'd like to share a little bit about scripting in Ruby. I believe that a lot of the repetitive tasks that we find ourselves doing over and over, both with software and in real life, can be automated with simple Ruby scripts. And I want to show here that we can get a lot accomplished with just a few lines of the Ruby that you know and love. So my name is Jared Reyes. I'm a software developer. I like to build stuff with Rails and React. So what can we write scripts for exactly? Well, I have some ideas for you. Unorganized folders, for example, could be organized by accessing their file types or metadata. We could back up specific sets of data that are important to us. We can build something like a social media bot that posts customized content periodically for us. We can perform web scraping and then, say, generate a PDF from the data we gathered. Or with gems like Twilio Ruby, our scripts can begin to take more complex actions, like sending us custom text messages. If you'd like, you can also schedule your scripts to run at specific time intervals with tools like cron for Linux, launchd for macOS, or Windows Task Scheduler. Beyond those listed here, try and find some tasks you can automate that are relevant to your life and work. So let's say we have a cluttered folder full of files of varying file types. We want to organize them into separate folders by file type. You could manually make new folders and drag and drop several times, but this is tedious grunt work that we can write a Ruby script to handle for us instead. But how do we go about that? Well, if we take a look at Ruby's standard library, we find that there are some helpful classes and modules that we can leverage. One such class is the file class. If we want to organize our files by type, maybe this file method to return the extension type is a good start. Ruby also has something called the file utils module. As Ruby's primary interface for interacting with directories, we can use it to make new folders. We can take the file type returned by the previous file method, store it as a variable, and pass it to the file utils method, making a new directory. Dir is another class that can help us by navigating into the context of a directory with methods like change directory. So now that we know that Ruby has built-in tools to help us out, let's put them together in a Ruby script that we can run from the command line when it's complete to organize our messy folder. The command line arguments that we end up passing to that script are stored in the special argv array from which we can access inside the script. Our script will take one argument, the directory containing the files we want to organize. We'll make 2 checks to ensure that the script is called the way we expected. First, to confirm that the script was passed an argument at all, and second, if the argument passed correlates to a real directory. Next, we'll enter the directory with dir. We can further leverage dir to grab all the files in the current directory with dir's glob method. The wildcard simply means we want all files, while the select block filters out non-files, i.e. directories. The group by method groups a collection by the result of the block passed to it. It will return a hash with the file type as a key and arrays with the grouped files as values. So we can then iterate over those group files using the each method and use the extension to make new folders based on the extension name. And with our new folder in hand, we can begin moving our files into it one by one with the file utils move method. It takes 2 arguments, the file and the path to the new directory. The loop repeats until we've gone through all the files and prints a nice message to the console. Here's the whole script. It might be hard to read, but if we run it, we get a squeaky clean folder. And so that was just a basic script that you can easily whip up with the classes and methods Ruby gives you out of the box. But if I had time to go further today, I would love to show off some of Ruby's awesome gems to accomplish a lot more. Here's just a few. And that's it. I hope this served as a good intro to automating stuff in Ruby. And just know that there's so much more that's possible with Ruby's awesome, diverse ecosystem of tools. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to RubyConf 2023. My name is Eli Barreto, a web developer based out of San Diego. And I'm very excited to be here in front of you all. And I just have to say that it's been an extremely awesome journey and a road to get here. And a lot of that journey has to do with facing my good old friend fear. And so just a little bit about me. I was a stay-at-home dad, and transitioning into tech was one of the scariest things I've done after becoming a stay-at-home dad, which was super scary. Just becoming a parent in itself and staying home with the kids turned out to be something that was scary, but also very rewarding. So jumping into tech here, I decided to do a coding boot camp with Learn Academy, and that was about a year ago that I finished that. Thank you. It was quite the process, and getting out of the coding boot camp, unbeknownst to me, was the hardest journey laid ahead after that, was looking for employment and still developing my career so that I can learn the programming languages that I'm applying for. So why did I choose this topic? I believe that many of us struggle with this, and this is something that you may be familiar, and it may be useful to know that you're not alone. Some of the strategies that I've used to deal with fear is just acknowledging the fear. Just, there it is, you know, like I'm scared right now, my knees are weak, my hands are sweating, and I don't care. Because at the end of the day, no one's gonna remember this, and I'm just gonna do my best and share hopefully something that you guys have also learned and may come across. When I'm dealing with things that are super scary, I also like to call on my friends and ask them questions, you know, ask them from experience, how did you get through this, you know, difficult time? How did you solve this problem, you know, like, and even if they don't give me the right answer, you know, I know that I'm gonna get help from my friends because we're all just, at one point or other, we're all scared, and then we learn, and then we figure it out, and then hopefully we can find a way to give back to people and help others along the way, because that's how life is, you know. We have to learn from each other and learn from our mistakes, and if we make mistakes, we own up to them, and we show everybody else, hey, look, I made this mistake. Hopefully you don't have to make it too. So some of the tools I pull upon is when I get scared, then I know that that's the route that I have to take. That's the path that I'm gonna go down. If I'm scared, then it must be worth it, you know, because that's the greatest reward, is doing scary things. So I encourage you and I implore you to find things that are not in your comfort zone, that may stretch your limitations, that you may have to call your friends for help. And that's how you know you're in a good spot and you're gonna grow, and you might end up in front of people like I am today at a RubyConf. So a little CSS humor. That's what I came up here with, but I tried. So this is a very good quote, which I like to think about a lot, and it's, alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much. I'm a kind of person who likes to work on my own, But I found always in the past that working together with people and developers that are also trying to do the same thing, that are also pushing their limitations, that are doing things that there's a high chance of failure, that's where most of the growth can happen. So help each other out, build community, and hopefully that helps somebody else that may be in a position like me who's scared to come up here, and just maybe that's all you need is someone to give you the push. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Songhon Jung, and I want to talk about building front ends in Ruby, and specifically not just any Ruby. I want to talk about building front ends in pure Ruby. Well, just to give everyone some context, at last year's RubyConf, Matsun introduced a new edition coming with Ruby 3.2, which is Ruby VM now runs on WebAssembly. And kind of the implication of this advancement is that we can potentially replace JavaScript with Ruby on the browser, opening the door to a fully Ruby, I love that enthusiasm, opening the door to a fully Ruby front end, potentially. But then we have two questions that naturally follow. The first is, can we build it? And the second, more important question is, should we build it? JavaScript. This is, and I think the answer to the first question is a pretty resounding yes. It's been done before. C# has already built a fully C# web framework where you can program your front end in C#, no JavaScript, asterisk. So I think the first question we can also, if Microsoft did it with .NET, we can probably do it with Ruby. The second question is a little trickier, but I still think the answer is yes. And I hope to kind of deliver my point on this. And can everybody raise their hands for a minute? Okay. If your web app, if your team doesn't build web apps, sorry, but hands down, please, because, well, this is web technology. If your team has a dedicated front-end developer, hands down. If your web app doesn't need any reactivity, hands down. If your web app needs blazingly fast reactivity, hands down. Okay, so we have, obviously, it's not for everybody. I think we can clearly say that. But we still see a good number of people, enough people to kind of warrant saying that, okay, maybe this is a possibility worth exploring. Oh. And specifically, I think the audience for this is small teams with non-client-facing web apps, because clients got to have that quick load times, quick reactivity. Whether it can also be like a startup who wants to demo their product ASAP to investors, or maybe you want to do a proof of concept to your manager and can't have anybody else like working on it because it's like a side project. And I hope we can agree that these are moderately important use cases. Maybe we're not building GitHub or like Shopify's monolith, but this is still a use case for Ruby. And hopefully with that I've convinced you guys, and kind of coming back to the can we question, I will say that there are two big hurdles. The first is bundling. The second is rendering. With bundling, we want to be able to use gems on WebAssembly, which is not quite there yet. But we do have Shopify working on this, I believe, with a recent gem they came out, and by recent I mean like a month ago, called Ruby, where they pre-load and do some little tricks to make WebAssembly go faster. And my gem, ReRB, aims to kind of tackle the second half, or the first half of the second half, where we want to build DOMs with kind of pseudo HTML syntax. And what ReRB essentially does, it compiles ERB into valid Ruby code for Ruby WebAssembly, and then it compiles it into valid HTML / whatever code you need. And if you are familiar with Babel and React, this is kind of what Babel actually does. Babel and React actually does with JSX. So I have a very quick demo. All right. So I have my to-do app here. This is based off of Adam Hess from GitHub's to-do app that he built as like a side project. You can see that we have active items, we have completed items, we have events, kind of on-click events with lambdas functions. This is pure Ruby. And then if you run ReRB to do, you get out a big script. You get out a compiled script, and if you write that into index.html, I'm gonna reload it. That's taking a while. Oh. Okay, demo. Oh, wait, there we go. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we reloaded it, and event. Wow. Re-rendering is not working yet, but you can see that this is actually working, except the re-rendering part, where I'm just bluntly, yeah. But yeah, that's the point.
All right, my name's Josh Maurer. I just came through Learn Academy this year, graduated in June. Thank you to Sarah and everybody else that was involved in that. Elise, if you're out there, you were a wonderful instructor. All right, so question for everybody out there. Who right now is actively looking for a job? Raise your hand. All right, anybody there looking for a job longer than 3 months? Anybody there looking for a job 5, 6 months or longer? There's a few of us out there. Okay, so with this is pertaining to you. It pertains to everybody, but it's really focused at you. It's partially a pep talk, but it's partially, hey, don't give up. My partner sent me this the other day, and it really hit home. I've had a couple of really good friends that I've gone through a lot with give up. They've gone 4, 5, 6 months. They've been trying to find a gig. Nothing. It's a tough market, right? It's not due to them necessarily. It's not due to the jobs they're looking for. It's the market at the moment. But therein comes resilience. She sent me this, and it really hit home hard, to the point where I was going to do my tech talk on Hotwire, changed it to this on the fly. So this year, I was tested more than ever. I lost a lot, but I also won. I failed. I cried. I laughed. I learned. I loved. But most of all, I'm still here. I didn't break, and that hit home. I literally started crying during that. Obviously, big crier, right? It was a big deal, because it's a struggle. I'm a single dad with 2 kids full time. It's a huge commitment to go into this, and you know, you don't know how it's going to happen. You don't know what the universe is going to have in store for you, but you got to keep with it. You got to stay resilient. You got to keep moving forward. With that comes fear, very, very much piggybacking off the talk a couple times ago. Like it makes no sense to worry about things you have no control over, because there's nothing you can do about them, right? There's nothing. And why worry about things you do control? The activity of worrying keeps you immobilized. It stops. And I had that happen to me. A couple months after I graduated, I was struggling hard. Looking for a job. There's nothing like doing the old LinkedIn shotgun methodology and just getting ghosted 99% of the times to build some self-confidence. But doing that, I switched with Learn's Career Services. They really helped me a lot. We switched some tactics, still tried, still got rejected, nothing. Got to the point where I went back to work and just literally started working 50, 60 hours a week. Yeah, sure, I needed the money. But on top of that, if I was working that so much, I could ignore it. I was so tired when I get home, I wouldn't worry about it. Is that the right answer? No, but I woke up one day, I'm being immobilized. I was not going forward and moving towards where I wanted to be in life. And that's kind of where this kicked in. So this is a wonderful quote that my mom's been telling me for years. So got to reference my mom. But the oak fought the wind and it was broken, but the willow bent when it must, but it survived. So with that, okay, I still need to work, right? I need to pay my bills. Can't have not have a roof over my kid's head. Have to feed them. With that, however, though, what do I do to keep going where I want to go, to live the life I want to live? Well, I can cut those hours back down to 20 hours a week, make enough to get by, and keep going forward. It's resiliency. It's huge. It's massive, and it's hard. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. But net positive, you keep moving forward. You keep struggling day in, day out. You reach out to your friends. You reach out to your family. You reach out to network. I mean, those of you that have seen me around, I've been jacked up on caffeine all week, riding the hallway track, talking to anybody I can to keep it motivated. I mean, the job stuff aside, that'll happen. For me, it's motivation. It's being resilient. It's keeping moving forward no matter where I'm at. So with that, we're going to go with the cliche yet very on point comment or quote of the day is, if it's easy, everybody do it, right? We're all here. We've all gone through our trials and tribulations to make it. Everybody's got their own story. Everybody's got their own journey. But, we're here, we're standing, everybody's here for a reason, and this community is phenomenal. And it's what really drives me to stay involved, hang my hat, and give it everything I got. So with that, thank you everybody for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to me give you the talk. And on that, if you ever want to reach out, let me know. But the biggest thing, Jim Remsick from Flagrant is hosting a conference in Madison in August. Give him a shout out and show up if you can. Thanks everybody.
Nice to see you guys. And I'm Eric Halverson, and this is my first Ruby conference, my first lightning talk. Thanks. So I'm going to do this intro to PDAC, and that's an acronym, a problem-solving approach using Ruby. Here's the plan, quick intro, why I'm telling you about this. PDAC, what is PDAC, coding example, PDAC in action, and a summary takeaways and resources. So yeah, the beginning storyline is that I belong to this coding group started by Julie J of Ruby for All fame. And we get together once a week and go over Ruby books and solve problems. And my buddy Caleb, it was his turn to drive, and he went through this PDAC approach. He's from launch school, and it was he put a big equal begin and equal end at the top of the above the method, and started writing out this big long PDAC problem and identifying the problem and looking at inputs and outputs and data structures and algorithms and mental models and this whole big process before actually writing any code. And I thought that's pretty cool. I also thought that's taken a long time, and maybe it's overkill. Like, I wasn't sure, like, if it looked neat, but it seemed like a lot. And then we got to the bottom of the test, and he said, all right, let's run it. And I said, yeah, but what about this use case and that use case? And he said, we've already done all that. And he pushed the button, and it's all green. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So I said, the next time it was my turn, I said, let's try this out. Let me drive, and you walk me through. And so we went through the whole thing and identified all the problem steps and got to the bottom and hit test all, and it went all green again. And I went, wow, that's not my experience. My experience has usually been, write the code, read the error messages, refactor, read the error messages, refactor, and so forth until I finally kind of get my way through it. So that's the idea of what got me here, because I thought it was pretty neat, and I started, I'm practicing it now. So here it is, PDAC, process the problem. What are we trying to do? Input, arguments, data types, output, meets requirements, data types, make the requirements explicit, rules, questions, assumptions, mental models are optional, summary of the problem, first ideas on a solution. Examples, tests, TDD, validate your understanding of the problem, data structure, what data structures might you use to convert the input to the output, algorithm, steps to convert input to output, which is using pseudocode, and then code. So that's kind of the process. So let's look at a real world short example, just a really simple problem so you can get the idea. P is for the processing the problem. So given a string of numbers, this is the one I did recently, just trying this out to see how it works. Given a string of numbers, return the highest and lowest number. The input's a string of numbers separated by spaces. The output is a string containing the highest and lowest numbers from the input string. Requirements, rules, edge cases, questions, assumptions. There will always be at least one number in the input string. The output string must be two numbers, the highest and lowest numbers from the input string, separated by a space, highest number first. So that's the problem we're given. My mental model was, since we're evaluating highest and lowest number, we might convert the string to actual numbers and then evaluate high and low. My second mental model, the output string needs to be sorted, so we might do that before we convert it back to a string. Since we are returning the highest and lowest values only, we'll need to get rid of the middle values somehow. This is the way I was thinking about it. I put a little note here. The mental model will inform the data structure and algorithm part of the process, so that there's an opportunity here to consider alternative mental models, comparing design trade-offs, et cetera, before heading down a specific data structure and algorithm path. So here's kind of the E part for examples. If we plug in to this method 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it should return 5 and 1 as a string. If it's 1, 9, 3, 4, -5, it should return 9 and -5 as a string. So I'm going to go with an array as a data structure based on my mental model that seems to make the most sense. So this is my algorithm, 4 steps. Convert the input string into an array of strings. Convert each string number into an integer, create an array of integers, find and extract the highest and lowest integer values from the array and sort highest to lowest, and then convert the array back to a string at the end. So this is what, if you actually write the code for those, the first one, convert the input string into an array of strings. Array of strings equals numbers.split. And then the second one, array of integers, array of strings.map. And then the code part's not as important, but it works. The idea is to figure that out ahead of time. So anyway, this is it. If you enjoyed it and want to learn more, there's an article solving coding problems with PDAC. Thanks so much.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Vito. And today I come to you with a cautionary tale about module mixins. So this is a tale of the late, great discount site, Coupon. Now, back in the day, Coupon was the original online discount retailer of concert tickets. Now, at that point, their controller stack looked like this. So Coupon offers such good deals that they grew rapidly. So they expanded into comedy. So again, their engineers got busy and built this. Now, they had 2 controllers, each with a show method that calculated a price. And so at this point, someone came along and dried that up naturally, like this. So now they create a base controller and move the price calculation into that base controller. Make sense? Now, over time, the price calculation became quite complex. The controller was getting really big. So they moved the pricing code into a module, like so. So now, with business booming, Coupon decided to branch out. Turns out everyone needs a place to stay near a concert venue, so they went into condo rentals. And so the engineering team got busy again and built this. They created a new controller for condos. Now, they wanted to keep their pricing algorithm in the pricing module, but there was a problem. The module referenced at concert, while the new controller referenced at condo. So they extended the code in the module to include the rental pricing algorithm, and they now had to check for the presence of each of the instance variables before selecting which algorithm to run. All right, so here we are. There are 5 classes in one module, and we already have nearly as many problems here. First, there are mystery guests all over the place, including the setPrice method in the controllers and the instance variables in the module. It's unclear where they are defined if you're looking at each one of these files. And that's making the code harder to understand, and it makes it prone to mistakes. Next, the pricing module has implicit dependencies on instance variables that are in all 3 concrete controllers, meaning that if somebody were to refactor any one of these controllers, they might inadvertently break the module, and vice versa. And they put the 2 pricing algorithms side by side and added an if statement. That's going to encourage people to add more conditionals to the method as they add more features. Plus, now all 3 controllers have access to both pricing algorithms, and this is reducing cohesion across the board. Finally, testing the setPrice method will require an instance variable to be present. Assuming you're testing your module in isolation, either at concert or at condo will have to be set, probably in the test. And that means that you're going to have passing tests even if somebody removes these instance variables from the controller. So what happened to Coupon? Well, sadly, they didn't make it. Over time, their code became so complex that they were overrun by their more nimble competitors. Now, here's what Coupon could have done to save themselves. They could have rehydrated the pricing algorithms and extracted polymorphic classes that encapsulated their own data and behavior. Doing so would have had the benefit of removing all those implicit dependencies that are tricky and can trip you up. And instead, they would end up with a more cohesive solution. Testing would also be much easier and safer. So what have we learned? Well, mixins are leaky. Stuff can seep in and out of them, and that can ruin cohesion. Now, in most cases, you're better off extracting code into a class. If you must use a mixin, make sure it is entirely self-contained. It should not know anything about the classes that are including it. All right. Thanks. I'm Fito. If you want to chat about any of this, if you disagree with me, come find me. Let's talk about it. Thanks.
We're going to skip ahead real quick with a little intro. So I like to make coasters. This is a Ruby coaster I made in my free time because I needed a place to set down my drink. And I went the easy route of learning, of like fixing a 3D printer, learning how to resin, or how to handle resin without making myself sick or dead, and then making the 3D model for that, sanding it down, and now I had a place to put my beverage, right? And then on 4th of July, a bunch of my nieces and nephews came over and started throwing them like at the ground like a Frisbee, right? After all that hard work, graciously though, their parents intervened, said, stop that, that's bad, don't use coasters as Frisbees. But I told them, no, let them, right? Those kids are my product testers, right? I wanted to sell them on Etsy. And like about a month ago, Ready Set hired me to be that child for them. So Ready Set is a sort of like a SQL caching layer. So we're gonna get a little bit technical before we get into the child product testing side of it. So Ready Set, it's from originally started as a project at MIT called Noria. It is like I said, it's like a SQL caching strategy in like same domain as like Memcache and Redis. And so like more or less you use it to cache your SQL queries, right? And notice how I said your SQL query is not your data, right? So what Ready Set is, it exists between your, for example, your Postgres database and your Rails app. And what it does is you basically tell it, you pass a query to it, and then it sort of breaks that query down into sort of like nodes, we'll get there in a second. Okay, so these queries that we're submitting, what are queries? You can think of queries as sort of like action and parameters, right? Select, it's an action, and whatever parameters that you're passing to it, and then the next action, where, and those actions are the nodes in, are the nodes that are being submitted for this caching graph, right? So instead of doing a key value store, and having to do a bunch of manual coding, a bunch of cache invalidation in your Rails app and stuff, what this will do is it is like a replica database that is talking to your primary database, and when a request comes in, it gets rerouted to this or to the Ready Set server. And it will basically start to retrieve cache data until it can't, right? And like I mentioned earlier is each one of those actions turn into a node, right? But also you can think each one of those nodes as its own separate cache that is aware of what's going on previously. It turns queries into a graph cache, and it'll start to return. It'll retrieve the cache data until it can't. For example, if you had 10 records, right, and on the Ready Set server, it's basically putting those records on RAM. And sorry, I was a little bit nervous talking about a technical talk. Like I said, I was hired a month ago, and I had to go through a whole MIT paper. But it's a really cool new technology, right? It's it's keeping it's even if your primary database was 10 gigabytes and you had 1 gigabyte of RAM, it's just storing the most relevant data on RAM, right? So it's if you had a news feed and you're trying to get the post and likes, it'll go through each step, check if there's data available for it, and if not, it will just go to the primary database and just surgically slice it in. But it's not going to do any redundant extra computing that it doesn't have to, right? So like each one of those nodes, if there's data available, it'll return that. And even if there isn't any data, it'll go all the way through and just end up hitting your primary database anyways. No.
Hello, so my name is Gary, and today I'll be giving some insight into how to run experiments in production. So right off the bat, this sounds like a bad idea, but there might be some method to the madness, we'll see. So imagine you work at a bank, and your mission today is to refactor and improve the performance of the code or the method that calculates the balance for bank accounts. And if you were to take a look at this Ruby on Rails code here, you'll notice that we're using reduce to sum up all the transactions. However, you might think to yourself, instead we could use the sum method and do this all in the database and make it a lot quicker. So this seems like a really straightforward change. However, there might be a way to make sure we're actually getting the same results. When it comes to refactoring, you could simply switch out the old code for the new code. And in this case, we would switch out the old balance calculation method for the new balance calculation method. However, this would subject all users to potentially buggy code. As a bank, we probably don't want to be printing money out of thin air, so one solution would be to do A/B testing. Instead of fully switching over to the new method, we could apply this change to a subset of users or requests. And in our case, a simple version of this might be just randomly picking between the old version and the new version of the code. However, there's still an issue with this solution. If we did happen to randomly start printing out money, we wouldn't really know. This solution doesn't let us compare the old and new results from the methods. So what if we ran both of them? So we would first compute the results for using both the old and new methods. Then we would compare the results. If the two results don't match, then we know that our newer method is buggy in some way. And lastly, we would then always return the old result because we know that's reliable and that it's accurate. So what are some more reasons you should run both? Running both will let us compare the results and have a higher confidence of accuracy. Running both will also let us use production data. Since we're running this in production, we can test weird edge cases, since we have that production data to do so. And last but not least, it'll also give us accurate balance calculations because we're still using that old result, which we know is accurate. However, on the flip side of things, by running both methods, you'll take up more time, so you'll see a decrease in performance and also response times. This solution of running things in production or running experiments in production is exactly what the Scientist gem by GitHub does. It's a Ruby library that's meant for carefully refactoring critical paths, and in combination with the Lab Tech gem by Real Geeks, you're able to store these results using Active Record if you happen to use Rails. These two gems really are a great combination for running experiments and analyzing the results after them. And here's what an implementation might look like. We'll first provide an experiment name and then run the control or the old method inside the use block. And then we have the candidate, or also known as a new method, inside the try block. And these gems, as they run, they'll also measure the performance of each individual method. And also it'll swallow and record errors, which is important if you have newer buggy code. And it'll also let you run experiments for a certain percentage of requests. So this is similar to A/B testing, which we saw earlier. Altogether, I found that experimenting in production is a really nifty way to test out a refactoring before it actually goes live. And if you're interested in learning more or talking about this or anything else, I'd love to chat. My name's Gary too. Thank you.
Hi there. So that's so bright light here. I didn't expect to have it like that. So I got here from Vilnius, and it took me like 20 hours to fly here. And it's actually 2 a.m. in my hometown. So I'm not afraid at all speaking, but I'm sleepy so much, so I'm under jet lag, so like. But yeah, I wanted to tell a little bit about Ruby conferences. So everybody knows why it's important, what a point for that. But do you know how many conferences happened this year? Ruby conferences. 6. Any thoughts? How much? 20. Okay. Any guess? Okay, it's 3 dozen almost, those who listed. So I don't know, give an applause if you get one that you visited. So that's like the first list, second list, This one, we are here. And that's a lot. That's a lot, and that's important, because as Matt said, we need to care about community conferences. That's something that boosts communities, something that makes the community, and even like when the conference travels. So my name is Sergey Sergienko. I'm the CEO and founder of Cybergizer, and I've stopped using Twitter and now switched to Mastodon, so you can find me here. And Cybergizer is like a small company that is doing Ruby since version 2 and addicted to that, so we're like 7-year-old in the market. But I think what happened to us recently is called Yuruko. Raise your, oh, I cannot see, like, do you know what is Yuruko? Anybody? Okay, cool, thank you, nice. So do you know what it stands for? Okay, so European, that is correct. Ruby, that is also right. So what was the last guess? Conference. Okay, so the conference it's a good guess, right? And that is correct, because it started in Germany 20 years back, so conference in Germany, it's conference. So it turns 20 years, and I'm the host of this conference. We did it in Vilnius this time. It was absolutely fabulous. It's an amazing event. A lot of people came there. So we managed to do Ruby engineers on Rails. So we rented a party train, and it was pretty old and pretty scary. So we experienced, like, do you know bus factor? So you cannot, like, important people shouldn't be on the same bus. If it hits, you know, you lost it. So we have train factor. So we had, you know, 600 Rubies to almost fit in the same old and scary train. But that was good. And yeah, so I'm here to announce a new kid on block. So it's called Baltic Ruby. We're going to do that in the next year. We haven't decided the date, so we're talking to Mats to come. He said, I will, but I don't know when. So he said, I might come in April or in June. So it's going to be happening in April. So this is something in between April and June. So yeah, it's going to be happening in Baltic Sea. So the idea for this conference is to stick to the shore and like being with the communities that across the Baltic Sea, so the sea connects people. And there is a lot of community and a lot of community people. A lot of them we had on Yuruko. With a lot of them we are keeping in touch, doing Ruby meetups, on conferences, a lot of different formats to foster and grow this community, to help them grow. So we handpicked the first city for Baltic Ruby, and it's going to be in Malmo. So, oh, I lost the slide with beautiful Malmo view. But so Malmo is if you can see here, so it's in Sweden. It's connected with the bridge to Copenhagen. So it's a very nice city with a very nice experience. Not many people would decide to go there without purpose, so we bring them purpose. So I invited all of you next year in April to come to Malmo for Baltic Ruby. Thank you very much.
I'm Mike Topa. I actually bribed myself onto the stage by promising Eric a Star Trek reference in my talk. But my first RailsConf was 2016. And I've been to several RailsConfs and RubyConfs since then. And I'm always excited to be here with all of you in the Ruby community. And I'm up here today to talk about making online identity verification less awful. So what am I talking about? Many of you have probably done this before, but if you haven't, it involves taking a picture of the front and back of your driver's license or other ID, uploading them, and then doing a facial recognition selfie scan to demonstrate you're the same person shown on the ID. If you've done this before, raise your hand. Yeah, it's becoming more and more common. And if you enjoyed it, keep your hand up. Yeah, the person on this slide is smiling because this is a marketing photo I found on the web, but it's safe to say it is not my idea of a good time. And I've had to do it for the IRS, for my bank, for Airbnb, for eBay, and others, and I hated it every time. The process was a pain, and it made me nervous. Like, these are pictures of my driver's license and a scan of my face. Like, where are they going to end up? And are they going to be sold? Are they going to be exposed in whatever data breach happens next? And the first time I had to do it was actually the worst. My screen showed me what the camera was seeing, but with the colors inverted. I didn't take a screenshot at the time, so this picture isn't me, but this is basically what it looked like. And you know, I'm trying to imagine like the UX approval meeting where folks sat around and said, yeah, let's do this. This will be great. People will love it. But I have to tell you, it totally freaked me out. Like I was thinking, am I in an old Star Trek episode? Like what is happening? And it's okay, if you unpack like all the things I'm complaining about here, it boils down to like 3 issues. So the first is the number of different kinds of sites that require identity verification is only growing. Sharing economy sites like Airbnb, legal contracts, employment services, online video games, social media, online gambling, healthcare, online dating, educational services, government services, and the list just keeps growing. And the second problem is the verification process isn't easy and it doesn't always succeed. Maybe the lighting's bad, or you grew a beard sometime after your ID picture was taken, or you have trouble uploading the photos, or something else goes wrong. And roughly 10% of verification attempts result in a false rejection, which means that sometimes legitimate users are rejected as possible fraudsters. And when you think about this on the scale of millions of people, a 1 in 10 failure rate is staggering. And guess who suffers the most from false rejections? I'll give you a hint. It's not white guys. And it's funny how real-world biases reproduce themselves in technology, isn't it? So all of these issues can lead to long wait times for help, and that's assuming there even is live support. For example, like Airbnb doesn't offer live support, which maybe that's just an inconvenience, but as this headline here shows, when people need to prove who they are online in order to get their unemployment checks, and they have problems with the identification process, they have no choice but to wait. And the third problem is it can be insecure and it can be worrying. The tech industry has a poor track record when it comes to protecting privacy and maintaining data security. This chart is showing the numbers of people who've had their data exposed and data leaks and hacks every year, and every year it's in the hundreds of millions. And the simple truth is there's money to be made selling people's data. The huge fines Google, Facebook, and others have paid are just a cost of doing business for them. However, over the past couple of years, we've seen increasing concern and increasing pushback on these practices from governments and citizens. A recent example is the bipartisan backlash against ID.me's poor data security and privacy practices, which led to a decision to end their service with the IRS. So putting all this together, online identity verification is a lousy experience for people, and a recent survey found 42% of consumers have abandoned an online account application due to friction in the process. And there's no greater source of friction than identity verification. 42%. This is a really bad number. And think about what it means in terms of lost revenue for online businesses. So, why am I talking about all of this? My own frustrations and concerns with identity verification motivated me to learn more about it and inspired me to launch my own startup. It's still in its early stages, but the goal is to provide an identity verification service that has a strong emphasis on protecting privacy. And why should you have to go through the verification process over and over again at different sites? We can incorporate your verification into a reusable digital identity, so you only have to go through the process once, and we're calling our identity verification service. That's me. And you can find me after the talk if you want to.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Rolston. Today, I'm talking about the opportunity of failure. The other day, I was baking a cake with my daughter, and I transcribed this recipe onto a piece of paper because she was doing all the heavy lifting. And when I opened the oven, I immediately noticed something was wrong. And I ran to my recipe to figure out what happened. I had forgotten the leavening agent, which is baking soda. And what I did was I put it in the ingredients, but I did not put it in the instructions, so she didn't know when to add it. And I took a moment, and I was kind of panicking because what happens is when we have failure, it kind of distorts our perceptions of our abilities. So if I was a new baker, I know I would have been like, what kind of baker forgets baking soda in a cake? Like, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I can't bake. But I can bake. We can all bake. It's absolutely possible. But failure kind of makes you feel helpless. It makes you feel like those goals are completely unattainable, right? And I think that this is kind of caused by failure coming with blame and shame, right? And what we need to do is kind of take that away and open up failures to discussion. So what I ended up doing was talking to my daughter. And I said, hey, we forgot something. Let's go through this. And we were able to discuss the role that baking soda plays in a cake. And we were able to try it, and the cake actually tasted okay. And there was a little bit of rise. So then we actually got to take this a step further and discuss the role that eggs play in a recipe, and that they're not just there for flavor, but they also provide structure, right? And I think that what we need to do is shift this negativity that comes with failure and almost turn it into like celebratory, which in a professional environment, you'd say, why would you celebrate failure? Wouldn't that promote more failure? But the actual thing you need to do is celebrate failure, but also have really high standards. So if my daughter and I were to bake a cake again, we're not going to bake a cake attempting to fail at baking a cake. We want that cake to hit the standards that we have set for ourselves. We want that to come out excellent the next time. So how does this happen? How does that change and that shift happen? I think it happens with leadership. And the other day I was at my kids' school, and I thought it was a really great thing. The principal was addressing the entire student body with the parents, and she had made a mistake in front of everybody. And she asked everybody, she said, class, give me an "it's cool." And the whole student body responded with, "It's cool." And I thought, wow, what an amazing way to start creating a culture that counteracts that blame game, that takes away the tabooness of a mistake, and gives the children an opportunity to have that culture and to see in leadership that mistakes even happen from high up to down below, right? And so I think change takes time, and I think that change can happen within us all. And it has to start with the individual. So we must have the courage to confront and voice our own missteps, and then the tolerance and understanding to accept the imperfections in others. Because otherwise, all the lessons and opportunities that failure can provide for us get lost. So my name's Heather. That is it. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Hey, everyone. My name is Ryan Erickson, and this is how to grind your engineering org to a halt with one simple trick. So a little about me. I've been working as a full-stack engineer for approaching 9 years, many of those with Ruby and Ruby on Rails, which I picked up as a college student and intern. So very awesome to be here doing my first conference talk at RubyConf. Thanks so much. You've all been so nice. I'm really glad I could block out some time for it. Yeah, I'm really into terrible puns, but don't worry, it's a lightning talk. I can only hash out so many. Anyway, I've got a fun story for y'all. I promise from my title back there, it's not clickbait, but what happens next may shock you. So one day, another dev complained in my company's main Slack channel that their local build was taking forever. It was stalled installing a private gem I'm a primary maintainer of. So I figured if this gem was indeed the root cause, something had to have gone horribly wrong with the most recent update. It's pretty lightweight and small, so all the more strange. A little bit ironic considering this talk is a cautionary tale about keeping your dependencies up to date, but bear with me on this one. This escalated quickly, really got out of hand fast, and was affecting a lot of devs, so several others piled onto this Slack thread to investigate. The last commit to the main branch was a pretty standard, unremarkable update. We hadn't changed anything about the release process either, but the repo had magically grown to a whole gigabyte in size. So yeah, we started digging deeper into the whole process because this was pretty interesting. I don't want to admit just how long this scrambling took or how many other devs piled into this. But eventually I hypothesized that we were pulling down way more than just the main branch. And usually when I start thinking this way, it is time to step away from the old computer. Others were skeptical too. Why on earth would bundler pull down the entire repo? Well, it turns out at one point not too long ago, it did. Version 2.4.0, released in December 2022, optimized this away. But unfortunately, we had not updated in more than a year. 2022, 2023 is when this all went down in September. and we paid the price for it. In this case, it was also a pretty unfortunate coincidence that some other devs had been working with large amounts of data in a test branch. So, yeah, boom. Under most conceivable circumstances, this wouldn't have mattered, long story short, but mix in an outdated bundler and it did matter. Couldn't resist doing one more. I'm here all week, just like my team at work was trying to get the dang build to work. So yeah, we pruned our branches and we were quickly back to normal. Everybody was happy, could resume doing their job. We then upgraded to fix this long term. So moral of this story, keep your libraries and tools up to date, folks. There are several tools out there to help keep this top of mind. These are just a few I've worked with. Not only just to catch absolutely crazy scenarios like this one, but a myriad of other reasons, including bug fixes, new functionality, and security patches, to name a few. So yeah, thank you all. Feel free to come say hi or connect with me on LinkedIn if 3 dad jokes wasn't enough.
So I'm going to talk about a situation we've all been in when you have to write code really quickly, and it's going to be bad, but maybe you can make it not quite so bad. This is me. I gave a talk a couple of years ago. You can find it there. All of my experience is in early stage startups, so this is a little bit biased towards code that is, it's more important for it to be adaptable than scalable, as classically understood. This is you. You've been in this situation. There are various people that ask you to be in this situation, right? Your managers, because they need to show team throughput and action. Product, because they need to get it out the door. Sales, because they've made promises. Executives, because they are looking at the big strategic play, and oftentimes that means being nimble and needing to dodge after a particular opportunity, but they don't usually have a good understanding of what it's like on the ground. And of course, you in the future, because you're going to have to maintain whatever it is you did to make this work today. So these are the people that care and why they care, right? There are people that benefit from faster releases. There are the people that depend on a timely release, and there are people that have to cope with whatever you did. So when does this kind of situation arise? So of course, when someone else is late, we've all had a situation where another team needed assistance. When your team is late, something took longer than it expected. We all know how hard it is to do software estimation. When there's an outage, you know, those are always emergency situations. And again, it's not all bad. Sometimes it's something new happens in the market and you want to dodge after it. So again, when is it important for you to be able to move quickly? When you're supporting the rest of your company and when you're going after something cool. So how do you write good, bad, quick code? And this is very opinionated. You know, feel free to disagree with me. This is the most important part. Figure out what you need to build, then don't build all of it. You're going to cut a bunch of corners, but you want to spend your time thinking through which corners you're cutting so you know why each corner is reasonable to cut and useful to cut, and which ones you can't cut. Right? So it's all about not doing things rather than doing things poorly. So this results in good, bad, quick code. I find in my life that more pain comes from bad code than missing code. Right? Again, don't build things rather than build things poorly. This is a saying that comes from a lot of different communities. I experienced it through learning to spin things like hula hoops. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. If you ever notice, if you try and rush when you're walking, you trip a lot. But if you take the time to do each part of the step quickly, you just move fast. So it's all about slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Or if you've played Kerbal and developed an intuitive grasp of orbital mechanics, right? So again, bad code hurts more than missing code because missing code has no bugs, adds no dependencies. And very importantly, leaves you the room to put in the good code later. Going slow to go fast lets you maintain the deliberateness. A long time ago, I taught elementary schools how to program, and one of the things that struck me between those who were successful and those who were not is you could ask the kids that were successful at it, why they wrote each line, and they had an answer. And the kids that couldn't answer were the ones who were struggling. They were just trying to mimic whatever was going on, but they didn't develop an understanding. So maintaining that deliberateness of every line of code, even if you're only writing a few of them, if you're writing them quickly, it's really important. So the other important bit is where you can write bad code. And the answer is only on top of good code, right? If you were to add stuff on top of this desk, it'd start spilling all over the place. There's no more room for mess on top. But this mess is sitting on a pretty solid desk. It's not really going to go anywhere. So find your stable foundations and then grow from there. Sometimes that's not even in your code. It might be elsewhere in your organization. It might be in your processes. It might be with people. But just find the stable organization and then build on top of that. And then don't build on top of the crap you just wrote. So people have real reasons for you to go fast. There are real situations where you need to go fast. And you can, in fact, write that code quickly and badly, but not in a way that's going to hurt too much later. And it's worth it to do so. So, yeah, that's it.
Yes, I'm Victoria, and this is Getting Good at Being Bad at Things. So, welcome. So you are all probably accomplished bicycle riders, so maybe you don't remember, but I just learned how to ride a bike as an adult, and you may remember, like, when you're first trying something, you're a little wobbly, maybe your muscles haven't quite figured out how to do it, and most people are bad at things the first time that they try it. That's because your brain hasn't built the neural pathways to run your muscle memory for those activities. So I mentioned I am not a bicycle rider, I am a rock climber, so you can actually come climb with me later at Mission Valley if you'd like. If you go to the gym, you'll notice that there's lots of different colored holes, they're in different places, the walls are different. So every time you go climbing into a gym, you could potentially build a new neural pathway in your brain, new muscle memory. And that's why it's so hard to get good at rock climbing. But even if you spent a lot of time at the gym and now you're like, maybe I'll go outside, maybe those skills will translate. One of my favorite places to climb on the East Coast is the Red River Gorge. It's twice as tall as any gym that you'll find in the country. It's super steep, and you're gonna need to climb in that location to get good at it, so it's not gonna translate. And then moving back to the West Coast, you might climb rocks more like this. They're rounder, they're totally weird and totally different, so all of that other climbing you just did doesn't help you at all here either. So. What does this have to do with anything? For me, I'm an engineering manager. I need to build empathy with my team. We have a lot of different technologies, a lot of different tools. I can't necessarily be the expert at them, but I can do intros, I can learn a little bit, I can get some exposure. And you might have a manager who has said, I don't need to learn that. It's not my possibility. I don't need to do that. But I like to encourage people to do so, to try all these different things, learn them, and that's part of the growth mindset. If you believe that if you're not good or bad at anything. It's all a matter of how much time and effort you put into these things. So how do we get good at being bad at things and get good at being comfortable at being bad at stuff? So it's about the culture of safety. It's about the language that you use to talk about failures, to talk about to yourself. If you're saying, I'm bad at this, I'm not good at this, that's not gonna work. It's all about how we respond to those failures and knowing your boundaries as well. You're not always gonna be in a place where you're able to try a new thing and feel good about yourself. You might have a lot going on personally. You might wanna try something that's a little bit closer to what you're good at, that's different depending on where you are in your life. So ask questions. Most people who are pretty knowledgeable want to share their expertise, especially within this community. So if you have questions, there's probably someone who's willing to talk you through it. And where I live now, in Cardiff, we even have a statue for people who are not good at things. This is the Cardiff Kook. When they first built it, the town raised money to put in the statue, and everyone complained that he's not even doing a real surfer pose. And the town said, well, you raise your own money and build your own statue. So now they dress him up every year. They put different costumes on him every different day. It's really great. So the one thing to remember is, like, most people know the Dunning-Kruger effect, where someone is so confident that they are smart about something, but they're actually really not. But it's more common that people underestimate how much they know, and they overestimate how much other people know. So you think that everyone is so great at this, but actually most people are just about average, or you might even be better at it than you think. So lots of other smart people make the same mistakes, and they have different gaps in their knowledge that you might know. So yeah, I'm out here surfing, I'm trying to surf now. Other people are out there also trying to learn how to surf, and they're wiping out and they're doing just as bad. So it's tough for me to try to remember that I'm not the only beginner out there, and there are other people who are also learning and struggling. So the answer to fear is more information, and if you'll never know if you don't try. I've also tried different types of climbing on the West Coast now. So this is me crack climbing in Utah. This is me at Mount Woodson over here in San Diego, climbing a very different type of rock. And it's important to remember that your worth is not dependent on what you do or accomplishment. Like, you inherently have worth as a human being, and anything that you're trying to get done, it's great if it happens, and if it doesn't, then we at least learn something. So a little bit more about me. I'm a managing director. I work on the platform engineering team at Thoughtbot. I am a co-host of the Giant Robots Smashing Into Other Giant Robots podcast, and these are all of my socials that I have. So I'm faster than a minute.
Okay, thank you for, yes. Always great when AV works. Okay, thanks for sticking around. My name is Daniel. I write Ruby, and I work at this place. I'm not going to talk about Ruby or this place. I'm going to talk about my wheels. This is my camper van. My partner and I actually traveled here to the conference in our van. If you wander out there into the back lot, you actually might see it parked out there. Now, we're not full-time travelers. We live in Seattle for most of the year, but we do love road trips. We're often traveling for several weeks at a time, and that means sometimes we also have to work from the road. Now, I'm a Ruby developer. My partner's a small business owner, and so when we're working, we both need good internet. But how do you get good internet when you're here or you're out here? So I'm going to use my remaining 4 minutes to talk about how to get online when you're working remotely, like really remotely. And we're going to start with campgrounds. Now, many campgrounds and RV parks claim to have free Wi-Fi. Don't believe them. There's a good chance that that campground Wi-Fi is not going to work for you. And the reason is actually really simple. There are about 100 other people in that campground with you, and you know what they're doing? They're streaming Ahsoka on the Wi-Fi. Now, we might have opinions about whether or not it's worthwhile to be streaming Ahsoka, but it doesn't matter. That's what people are doing. So that campground might have great Wi-Fi, it might have great internet, but when everyone is trying to stream over that connection, you are not going to get any bandwidth. So some RVs advertise these Wi-Fi extenders, signal boosters. I'll tell you a secret. These don't work. Sure, they might boost your signal, but they don't do squat about the real problem, which is those 100 people streaming. So if we can't rely on Wi-Fi, what can we do? Well, we can use cellular. You can hotspot from your phone. You can also get these cellular router boxes. They have their own SIM, their own connection. They seem to work pretty well. Cellular does have its pros and cons, of course. It works great when you're in town. More of a challenge when you're out in the wilderness. We mounted this cell booster on our van. These are pretty common, just a large cell antenna with an amplifier connected to it. I found them to be quite effective. They won't help you if there's no signal, but they're great at turning something that's really weak into something that's good enough. Another option you can consider is satellite. There are several satellite providers out there. Of course, the big one today is Starlink. We might have our opinions about the person who leads Starlink, but the Starlink service itself, it's gone through some growing pains, but it's pretty robust these days, I think. Satellite also has its pros and cons. You can get great speed even when you're out here, nowhere near a cell tower, but you generally do need line of sight to the sky. And so when you're here, surrounded by tall trees, tends not to do so well sometimes. So what a lot of RV travelers do is they actually set up multiple options. Some people have Starlink, but they also have cellular as a backup, so they can choose depending on where they happen to be at the time. Many people maintain multiple cell accounts from different providers. So again, you can choose who has the stronger signal. There are even these multiplexing devices that you can get that automatically select between multiple providers or even combine bandwidth from multiple connections. What you end up doing really depends on how you travel and what your particular needs are. For my partner and I, we currently just have a single cell provider. And that's been good enough for us for the most part. But as we expand our travels, we are considering adding Starlink as well. If you're interested in this topic, this is a site that I can recommend, rvmobileinternet.com. It's not my site or anything like that, but they do have great information, great videos. I like them in particular because they're not advertisers. They're not brand ambassadors for any particular service, so I trust their reviews. And if you are into RVs, if you're into van life, remote work, I'd love to meet you. I'm sitting down here with the rest of the speakers. My partner and I got into this during the pandemic. We've been doing this for the past few years, and it's been great fun. So thank you for listening, and have a great day.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gao. I'm Chinese, therefore I'm very good at math. So I decided to talk about the numbers. I will start with the 3 first. I'm the first comer, as many of you are, to Ruby conference. This is my first conference in person since COVID pandemic. This is our first family business trip to San Diego with my 3-year-old. Yes. Thank you. Before we talk about 520, how many of you know what 420 means? Please raise your hand. Okay, quite a lot. I didn't know that before I came here until I saw this. I think this may be said on purpose. You cannot blame me not knowing that. In my career, I spend a lot of time. I do a lot git commit, git push. I never git high. Now, how many of you have heard about 520? Okay, thank you for those who stopped by our booth and know about us. For you don't, I believe you will remember 520 after my talk. So what does 520 do? We offer managed platform service to big and small companies to enable developers like you focus on code. If your job is not a developer role, please don't blame me. That's the majority of the attendees here. So what does 520 do? Unlike 420, they can get you to Cloud 9. 520 may get you to 9 different clouds. It can be AWS, it can be GCP, whatever your company decides to use. It may be hybrid. I love Ruby. There are 5 reasons that I love Ruby. 5. 2 of them are, the first, my wedding ring is Ruby, shiny. The second, I love Ruby community. I can say that now because I have been here for 2 days. I experienced how friendly, lovely this community is. The top 0 reason, yeah, I'm nerdy. I count from 0. Don't teach that to your kids. I tried with my 3-year-old daughter, didn't go well. So the top reason is that my husband, Wayne Sigun, decided to bring our business expand to Ruby community, basically bring the big enterprise platform value to Ruby community for mid-sized companies. In my culture, 520 means love. So 520 as a business means build healthy, respectful relationship to help our client achieve their goal. Thank you all. To show my love further, I only talk 3 minutes, so I give 2 minutes to next speaker. And I believe Erica will also appreciate me. He doesn't need search on phone to fill in that awkward silence between speakers. So welcome, Wayne Sigun. Thank you.
Wow, you really can't see anything up here, can you? You guys are all stars to me. So to the new dad before and the dad joke guy, just keep in mind that to qualify as a dad joke, the jokes have to be apparent. Anyways, so that aside, yeah, I'm nervous as heck, even though I've been around for a long time. I really don't enjoy speaking about myself or my past at all. However, I was pushed by my wonderful wife to do so, so I'm going to do it. Apparently, there's been a lot of people at the conference who have been asking about, like, you know, what happened in the past and the RVM story and that kind of things. So here I am because somebody signed me up for a lightning talk. Thank you. I appreciate that. But it's good to be pushed to do things that you're very uncomfortable with. So anyways, here we go. It's so amazing to see, or attempt to see with the lights, my wonderful friends again. I truly, truly appreciate you. Many of my longtime friends need absolutely no introductions. If you see any of these folks wandering around, definitely go up and say hi, because every one of them is amazing, just like the rest of you, and I appreciate you all. It's just, this has been an amazing conference and an amazing experience to come back to, basically. I truly love my community. You are my community, and I'm coming back to it, and it's just, you know, all of you are just absolutely amazing, and I can't, just words cannot express the gratitude and enjoyment that I've had this week, just talking with all of you and the value that that has brought. So, with that said, let's go on a little stroll through history. I worked at a company that used MRI, Matz's Ruby interpreter, for web applications in Rails in the early days. I think it was like maybe Rails 2 or something like that. And we used another wonderful technology called JRuby for ETL processes. If anybody's nerdly interested, that we were basically taking data outside of a MS SQL databases that were put there by some enterprise systems, and then they were extracted, transformed, and loaded into a Postgres database, which was then available for the Rails application. So this was pretty cool at the time. We were doing something that a lot of people were not actually doing those kinds of things at that time, at least not that we found. I basically watched my coworkers, my friends, all these people that I cared about, basically they were struggling. It was a very painful experience for them because, you know, they're trying to just write the Rails app code or the ETL code, but just to get the development environment set up or share things, like, you know, they spent a lot of time in those days trying to build Ruby, compile it, you know, just sometimes there was patches that we had to have or libraries, or it was crazy. It kind of really stunk. So these are pains like interpreter and environment management, version management, installing, upgrading, switching between the runtimes and interpreter contexts and the versions of them, and from the dev environment to the server, like there was all the management and consistency. It was like just so much pain for it. In those days, we didn't even have bundlers, so there was also how do you manage the sets of gems for each application, but not only those applications, but the versions of those applications as we rolled them from development to production and things like that. So it was an interesting time. So one weekend, I started hacking to figure out a way to take my friend's pain away. For any of you who are new to our world or been here for a while, if you got an idea that's going to help make the world a better place and help your friends to ease the pain, just hack on it, do it, because you never know. It's probably very useful. Because if you see some pain, solving that pain is the best way to actually bring value to not only yourself, but also your friends and your community. So just do it. So I came in that Monday, was super excited, shared the first version of Ruby Version Manager, or RVM. My friends and I had our development environments up and running like really crazy fast that same day, quickly and consistency. So basically we took the time to coding from getting a development environment set up multiple days, if they're lucky, kind of thing. It was like literally just super quick. It was the time to download and compile that all the scripting did, and it was really nice. So it kind of quickly took that pain away. So we had like a extra benefit of it applied to our servers too. So suddenly we also had development environments and the server environments all consistent and like up and running fast. It was great. A few days later, basically I shared this new RVM project with a friend of mine, Jamie Van Dyke, who I worked with at Engine Yard. He's a brilliant guy. He then shared it with this guy named Peter Cooper. I didn't know he did this, who turned out to have this cool thing called Ruby Weekly, or I forget if that's what it was called back then. He then published it, and then suddenly I had a flood of amazing people just reaching out via IRC, because it was before shiny things like Slack and Discord and, Bookface or whatever it is. So, Yeah, it was that kind of time, right? So these people would come and they'd say, hey, I'm struggling with X, can you help? And so basically I would work and add features to support X and solve for X, and it just evolved. So it's kind of like use case-based development, but it really was more pain-based development. Hey, I got this pain X, and we would solve for it. I spent nearly every waking moment helping folks to take away that pain for the next 2 years. I gotta say, I greatly appreciate the folks that I handed it over to, Michael, Piotr, and everybody else that contributed. Thank you so much, like, absolutely amazing. The last 10 years, I took that passion and I missioned to enable the focus on coding, and I went to large enterprises and I built application platforms and actually delivered it. And then that brings us today, which you already heard. So I went from enabling focus on Ruby app code to enabling focus on all app code. And this is what we bring back to our community, who we love and respect.
You should live stream. This is a talk about survivorship bias. Just kidding. Streaming changed my life. So I've been streaming on Twitch for the past 4 years, thank you. And because I streamed, I did all of these things live on Twitch. I added Twitch clips to 4M. I made a gem, Jekyll Twitch. I added the comparison validator to Rails, and I voice acted in a programming video game. And I never could have imagined that I could have done any of these things before I went live on Twitch. Which begs the question, why did I do it, right? Why did I start streaming? Like many of you, I would job hop about every 2 to 3 years. And what I found was that every 2 to 3 years, I would lose everything. My code in their private repos, my coworkers in their work Slack. It was almost impossible to bridge the divide between work Slack and suddenly moving to Instagram, and Twitter's dead now, right? Companies may be willing to hire you based on your accomplishments, but they certainly aren't willing to promote you based on them. So, I decided that I wanted to exist outside the boundaries of my company. That's what drove me to start streaming, and I want you to do the same thing. I want you to live stream. And it's very easy. You only need 5 things: microphone, camera, OBS or Streamlabs, a moderator, some alerts. I have a Discord with a stream mechanics channel. I will personally help you set up your stream if that's what you want. We're gonna run through some streaming quick tips. Audio is more important than video. Half the people listening to my stream are just listening to it while they work on their project, so you wanna focus on your microphone before your camera. By the way, quality is important, but time is key. You can have an amazing camera, an amazing microphone, incredible content, but what you're building is a community. You're building relationships and friendships with people, and that takes time. I want you to get a moderator. So on my very first stream, I had my friend Quinn Stone moderating for me. And the moment I turned on that camera, I knew that I had a friend on the other side of it. And I think that that came through when I was streaming, and it's come through in all of my streams since. As a small streamer, you are a target. I have seen as my viewer count drops, the number of spam messages will increase. Bad actors can see if you have a mod online, so a mod is often a preventative measure. I'd like to take a moment here to say a huge thank you to my moderation team. These are the folks who keep my chat friendly, kind, and welcoming. By the way, when you're streaming, I want you to treat chat as your friends, not your enemy. They want you to succeed. A lot of times, it's easy to get defensive about the code that we're writing. You feel like you have to be the expert. After all, you're the one with the camera and the microphone, right? So I want you to be open to new ideas and listen to your chat. And I have kind of an anecdote about this. So I mentioned at the beginning that I added the comparison validator to Rails, and I'd like to give you a little hint about how that happened. So this is a list of my top chatters. Number 1 on that list is Pretzel Rocks. That's a music bot. Number 2 on that list is Kego, stream troll. And then number 3 is Matthew D. Matthew Draper of the Rails core team, that Matthew D. So, and by the way, all 4,123 messages are just like pure technical advice, content, assistance, help. Not a single one of them is like, hi, hello, nice stream, chill, having a good day. So that's actually how he messaged me for the first time, right? He had a code suggestion. I had a problem, and he had a solution to it. And I didn't know who he was. I don't have flashcards of famous Rubyists, right? So all he was Matthew, who has a code recommendation for me. And if I had responded to that first message with, okay, whatever, Matt, I don't need your help, I'm an expert, I sincerely doubt he would have sent 4,122 more. And if that were the case, if I had been closed off to feedback, closed off to advice, then I never would have made such an incredible friend, mentor, and I wouldn't be here today because he's actually the one who suggested this talk. When I started streaming, I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know where things would go. But I knew things wouldn't stay the same if I stayed inside my company, and that's why I want you to live stream. That's actually a lie. I don't want you to live stream. I want you to exist outside your company. I don't care if it's YouTube videos, contribute to open source, organize a conference for 500.
G'day. Quick correction before we start. Lower Decks is a terrific show, but the best Star Trek show ever is Deep Space Nine. I just wanted to get that out there. APIs are all terrible. And obviously I can't unpack all of that and how to fix it in 5 minutes, but I just want to get you curious about this project of mine. APIs are all terrible, and if we fix them, it can make our whole industry much more efficient and effective. I was led to this by a project I had where we were doing urgent delivery. So it was a sort of Uber model. Let's say you have a kidney in New York and you want to get it to a surgeon in Los Angeles as quickly as possible. That's the sort of urgent we're talking about. And this involved finding the nearest driver to the pickup point, finding the airports near the pickup point, finding the flights between the two locations and airports near each end, and so on. And we used the Google APIs for this, the Google Maps platform that let us do the driving time, and the Google Flight Search that let us get the flight information, and it was absolutely terrible. It was so slow. It's kind of a fairly straightforward optimization problem, right? But we had to wait for all the driving results to come back before we could do the next step, and that just fed through to the end where it was 3 to 5 minutes to get the answer for the person who's like, I really got to get this kidney to... So it was terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And it's why is our industry doing this to us? APIs, all of this information is at Google, right? Why didn't I have some way, some straightforward way of connecting Google's own services together and just getting the answer from them? The problem can be described as this: endpoints don't compose. Endpoints are like functions you can call, but they can't call each other. So that's what I'm about, is trying to find a way to fix that so that we can connect our endpoints together in a fluid and straightforward and simple way. And the benefits are actually probably even more for trying to build something like a service-oriented architecture, even than trying to use Google's services. So I call this project FREST. A few ideas that it's based on. Endpoints are functions. So let's do functional programming in our API. Endpoints also represent data. They usually represent tables or rows. So let's have the relational algebra, but not SQL, because SQL is terrible. So I'm open to all sorts of ideas about how we might implement this. Here's one thought. What if we had endpoints in our API that represent functional programming operations? So for example, here is what calling a map, in the sense of taking a list and applying a function to all the elements, a map operation where I can give it, sort of the things that I'm mapping over and the endpoint that I want to treat as the function that I map over those values, and, various other arguments. And I could call that and get back the answer, like combine that with a fold endpoint, and I can be like, yes, give me the driver that can reach the endpoint in one go, and I can do it in one request. Some more ideas. We can use typing, strong typing, as a way of providing metadata about what those endpoints do. The results should be inherently distributed and asynchronous, which is something we're all trying to do and we're all struggling with. That example that I showed you of using a REST endpoint, you might have felt like that's going to get awfully complicated if I want to tie lots of different things together, but we can, using the principle of partial application in functional programming, actually allow the users of our API to set up their own endpoints so they don't have to repeatedly send all the stuff to us. I want to be able to generate a FileMaker-like user interface automatically for any endpoint. And this is, I think, easier than that might sound at first. So the results of the endpoint have a type. The type can give us mustache templates. The results can always be retrieved in JSON, and that JSON can be fed into the mustache template and give us the representation of what's at that endpoint in a few fixed ways that can be used as parts of larger user interfaces. This is actually an answer to the part of REST that nobody ever does. It's right there in the REST thesis that we should have a navigable API. This is an answer to that. I have a novel security and composition model I don't have time to talk about.
You thought there were going to be no lemurs. No, we have lemurs. It's just a quick talk. So let's get to it. I brought a little bit of fun. Typically, this is the night before Christmas, but now it's the night before Code Freeze. So shall we get going? 'Twas the night before Code Freeze when all throughout Git, not a developer's coding, not even a commit. The pull requests were submitted to the repo with care in hopes that Chip and Squirrel soon would be there. The team was all nestled smug at their table with visions of green tests and builds that were stable, and managers in their button-downs and my flannel had settled. After a long planning panel, went out to the pager they wrote such clatter we sprang to our laptops to see what's the matter. Away to the logs we flew like a flash, tore open cold storage and booted up bash. The lines of the graph of the new made requests gave a lesser working system, so Bill was just blessed. When what to our wondering inspection should appear but a ream of 500s and an outage in our hemisphere. With the literally bugging so lively and quick, we know in a moment the system was break. More rapid than Black Friday, the errors that came. We looked and we shouted, we called it by name. Now DDoS, overflow, now cross-site injection, and setups and triage and rewrite. To the bottom of things, to the page and on call, now fix away all. As new patches, outages they try, when they make with an error, the fix is found by and by. So out of the war room, the on-calls they flew, with PRs full of fixes, and the incident lead too. And then in a twinkling, I heard it on Slack, the dancing and laughing as though he beat back the hack. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down to the incident review, the tech lead came with a bound. They're excited about metrics from the charts to their throughput. And their servers were all patched with quick CH-root, and bundle fixes were right on track. They looked like a new developer opening their very first Mac. Their eyes twinkled how they told the tale. The postmortems told the tale. The notes were thorough. They showed us the skill. Major details were drawn up in a chart, as well as some sketch notes we could only call art. A fresh latte they held to the lip as they explained how the fixes would soon ship. And they had a broad smile and a plan they thought best that would mitigate the problem in the East and the West. They were excited and eager to ride Jolly Tech lead until they reminded us and made sure we agreed. A look of their eyes and a twist of their smile let us knew not to change a thing, not even a file. They spoke not a word, went straight to their work, filed a report, and turned with a smirk. And laying a finger aside of their nose, they gave a nod, the deployments now froze. They walked to the elevator, to the team gave a call, and away they all went. It was time for withdrawal. But I heard them exclaim ere they drove out of sight, "Happy holidays to all, and to all a good night."